A very good evening to all the architects, teachers, academicians, and practitioners who have joined with us for Future of Architecture 2021. Future of Architecture started last year, 2020, in the beginning of the pandemic, with architects talking about the way how architecture can take things forward and their experiences of how we will be handling this pandemic. That was a one-day series where we had three eminent architects from Chennai. This year, we have decided to make it a weekend series for 12 weeks, and we are in episode 9 today. And I'm really episode 10. And I'm really happy to say that we've got immense response from people from different parts of the country expressing their ideas and sharing their questions. So Future of Architecture 2021 is planned as an interview session with architects from across the country. A small introduction about the host college, RVS Chennai Padmavathy School of Architecture, in association with School of Art and Architecture Sushant and Manipal University Jaipur, are handling this entire event. A small brief about RVS Chennai. RVS Chennai is also known as the Alternative School of Architecture. We try and strive to make sure that we create some kind of change in the way we handle academics and try to improve the way we've been showing the new path of how to improve the academics. So that is why we call ourselves the Alternative School of Architecture, and we base our entire architectural syllabus on 5 strong pillars. The first pillar is called the School of Change, where we try to change the way we teach within the syllabus pattern and try to innovate in every kind of academic ways that we can. We have differentiated each year into a wing where every year has been given a theme under which the design studios are handled, the theory subjects are handled, and an integration of design and theory happens simultaneously. The second and the very interesting pillar that we have of RVS is called the Live Project, where students are involved directly in the construction of a building for around 1 month in an academic year. We've got the opportunity to be a part of a senior citizens library at Surat, an eco cottage at Tiruvannamalai, and many such projects. Here, a student does not behave as an architect, but behaves as a mason, as an electrician, as a contractor, as so many things on site, building what someone else has designed and being able to give it a real life. The third pillar is called the Vertical Studio, where it is a student exchange program between universities across the country that we have an MOU with institutions from Mangalore, Kochi, Delhi, and Haryana. And this project helps us in having shorter design exercises, which are very, very important for architecture students to be quick thinkers, develop new ideas, and challenge the social awareness that is around them and try to create solutions for problems which are very large. So we've got this opportunity to recently do a vertical studio at Sushant School of Architecture in Delhi, Azadi College in Kochi, NITI Mangalore, and we are constantly striving to improve on this front as well. The fourth pillar is the Summer Winter School, which is a travel-based studio learning program that we have created, where students get to follow their heart, follow their passion, and be able to work with architects intensely in understanding their culture and understanding their interests. So this is a program which is not only focusing on architecture, but also on allied fields of architecture. And we got the opportunity to recently complete a Summer Winter School on design and fashion with Manipal University, Jaipur. The finishing school is the fifth and the very important pillar. The Future of Architecture series is also a byproduct of the finishing school, where students are trained to be able to enter the field, enter the practice, to bridge the gap between education and practice, try to come up with ideas, strategies, where students are trained and they are able to focus and finalize their career and be able to take sensitive and very informed decisions. We also have something called a travel theme studios, where the Tamil landscapes of Kurunji, Mullai, Marudam, Neidal are studied in the first semester, and architectural and art studio and basic design works are inspired as an output of such travel theme studios. So this travel, the first travel a student undergoes, is the most crucial and the most important in RVS. This year, we got the opportunity to do a travel on the topic of Mullai, which means forest lands. And we also were able to conduct the batch 2020's art studio and basic design, the architectural design program, focused towards this theme, Mullai. We also are proud to say that we are one of the first colleges in India to kickstart agriculture within our campus. Agriculture means architecture in RVS. We call it agritecture, and we are very happy that we have dedicated around 2 acres of land purely for agriculture, and agriculture is going to be a part of the academic syllabus at RVS. That project is called Viday, and we have kickstarted it this year. We also have completed a live project with Proto Village in Andhra, which is actually a sustainable living community where students don't just build but live in a sustainable way, from the energy to consumption to understanding to food to the way of life. Everything is taught and developed in Proto, and this becomes a culture at RVS for students to understand the alternative way of living in a very detailed manner. All this has inspired us to kickstart the Sustainable Nature Campus, where our entire college campus is going to be converted into a nature campus, where architects are going to be coming to build. Our students also get the opportunity to design and build within the campus and create this architectural village, create this nature campus where we explore, we ideate, and we create. And this is not just for students of RVS, but also for architects and other students who would like to explore as well. The quarantine has taught us to start something called the quarantine Gurukulam, which is the old school methodology of learning. During the quarantine, we conducted multiple quarantine Gurukulam programs where students got the opportunity to stay in, learn, and work with faculties in a very different methodology. And finally, we've also kickstarted the Center for Design and Innovation from this year onwards, which is a space exclusively in the city of Chennai for architects to come, for industries to come, and also for institutions to come and work together, collaborate, and ideate. And I'm very happy to say the Center for Design is one of the first kind of a space that is exclusively available for architects and students to come and develop. So that's a small brief about RVS. And today we have with this architect Pramod Balakrishnan sir, a very good friend of mine and also a very nice mentor, where I've discussed so many things with him. Thank you for accepting our invitation, sir, and we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, sir. I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think Pramod sir is quite well known in the architectural circle. So I don't think he needs an introduction, but still I'm going to read something. Pramod Balakrishnan graduated from CEPT Ahmedabad. He started his career in Ahmedabad before moving to work in Kuwait, where he pioneered projects in all over Middle East. He turned to India and set up Edifice, a firm for architecture and interior design in 1987. He's a guest faculty, and I think many people who are attending this lecture, he would have definitely reviewed you at least once or spoken to you, or you would have heard him speak. So that's definitely something that would have happened. So I'm not going to comment on that. But one thing I should definitely say is the kind of questions that we've received today, it's very interesting. And I think we are going to have a very exciting conversation, because all the questions definitely, I think, has a backstory. And I have also written some of the questions, sir, but I'm not going to reveal which ones they are. So I'm going to keep it open. Anyway, let's get to it. The first question that we have to ask you today is, I'll just share it on the screen. Now, there is a lot of interaction. I'm going to give the premise of this question. There is a lot of question and interaction amongst architects about having young graduates who are recently coming out of the college to be able to, they have to definitely practice for 2 years, or they have to have an examination to, say that they are qualified and they have the ability to practice, they have the ability to teach. There are so many questions. There are so many debates around this topic where, young graduates are being asked to undergo some kind of special exam or a special training in doing this. Now, the question is, I'm going to read it out to you. Don't you think that architects who are currently practicing also should have an examination to renew their license and prove that they are capable, rather than just asking recent graduates to prove their capability? So I think this question is from a graduate recently. And this question is, architecture studios, firms also, shouldn't they have X amount of work, or shouldn't they also undergo some kind of scrutiny to renew the license? Because their contribution is by and large very big. What is your opinion on that, sir?
Well, this question has come about primarily because of the fact that we have so many schools of architecture across the country, and there are many, many students passing out from them, and all they, at the end of it, they get a registered license from the COA. I'm not taking the exceptions into consideration. I'm taking the general quality of students that do come out. And let me tell you that when I passed out of CEPT in 1980, I was half-baked. I didn't have all the knowledge that I needed to. I needed to learn from offices. I had to be working with an office to understand how work is done. And in that process, I learned so much that I didn't learn at CEPT. And therefore, it was impossible for me to have started practice just straight away after education, which is a case that's happening in many cases right now. And those students that do come into offices today are not fully aware of everything, which is acceptable, but they need to understand everything. And the only way that one can judge this is by either asking them to have worked with a firm or firms for a certain amount of hours, present something, and maybe write an exam. There were questions as to why should only students do it, why should not architects who are graduates do it. I would think that would be the next step after this one. Is it a good idea? I think it's a good idea, because what happens is learning doesn't stop just after you end your college. Actually, learning actually begins after you leave college. So there's so many things that you don't learn and you think you know. And therefore, to keep you a little bit in line and in understanding that there is something that you need to learn and something that you need to test yourself. So the examination is not testing you, but you're testing yourself. And that's important. If you look at it from that perspective, then of course you will not take an objection to it. You could be a great student, you could be a bad student, you could be anything. But when you come out into the profession and learn with somebody, practice with somebody, and maybe after a few years, 2 years, if you do attempt to write an examination, or let's say, let's call it an assessment, not an examination. The word examination has various connotations that are not really there. It's just a pass or fail. It's like the 6 exams that an architect in America has to go through to get be a licensed architect. And all he gets at the end of every exam is a pass, right? And he has to put in 3,500 hours of practice before he can become a registered architect. There is some sense in that. There is completely some sense in that. Otherwise, we have very, very young architects coming out and practicing. And sometimes that's detrimental to the profession to a large extent. I would never have started a practice on my own without having at least 6 to 7 years of experience. And even when I started on my own, there was so much that I had to learn that I wish I had, been not tested, at least been assessed by somebody. Self-assessment is something that is necessary, but somebody assessing you, I think, should be taken as a positive, not as a negative.
No, but again, the question is, it makes so much sense, because in many other countries as well, you've given certain criteria to renew your license regularly. For example, countries like Malaysia, where you have to undergo certain workshops, you have to be able to complete so many projects in order for you to be able to stay afloat and be a practicing architect. This makes so much sense. And I think it is also right. Like you said, we have to start looking at it in a very positive way, that if I am good, I'm able to assess. But my question is, I'm going to just extend what you said. There are many young practices that are coming in, and the demand and or the supply, the many people have resorted to doing projects on their own. There is one-person firms, a firm that has only one person and he's running it on his own and is doing his own projects. This has become a very norm or a culture at this moment, because also for the lack of jobs. So what do you think about it? Do you think there is not enough work, or do you think we're not really finding the work?
Well, if you look at the profession of architecture, primarily, if you keep it as a silo of architecture alone, we don't cater to too much a larger percentage of the population, right? We might have a large population, but as an architect, you cater to a very minuscule population. And therefore, the quantum of work that is out there is not as much as one would have expected. So that's one issue. And the number of architects that are coming out from colleges is quite a bit. This whole idea of one architect for so many citizens is really not working out in that sense, because we are not involved in 85% of what is built in the country. And therefore, what happens is young architects may not find the right office, or may not want to work, or might find somebody who gives them a job first, right? And therefore, they start the office. Now, there is no criteria that you can't start it. You can start an office. I have students who are practicing architecture, right? So there is no basic criteria. And the licensing and the signature is a farce in this country, right? It's a farce. So, no, I can practice, I can have somebody else sign for it, etc., etc. So until and unless you get a system that works, and the system is appreciated and it has value, even these examinations that we are talking about might not do what it's expected to do. So that is why you can start a firm just after you pass out, as long as and you don't even need to have a COA degree registration, right? And what does the COA do today? Just protects your title architect. Anybody else can design, right? So therefore, there needs to be something that we need to do to make the professionals stand out in the crowd of others who are building.
No, that makes total sense. Now the question is, many architects have come out. Like you said, we cater to a very small population of this entire country, and this has led to many architects moving into different fields. They have created opportunities as designers, as game designers, as writers, as Then this is actually something that has happened in the last, I think, a decade. Very much, it has been there. There are architects who have always ventured into other fields, but this has happened a lot, and the education system is also trying to accommodate these things. While I personally feel that when trying to accommodate multiple things, the core essence of being an architect gets lost, and the student in his mind, in a very young level, also starts thinking like that. So when a student moves out of his core profession of architecture and goes on into something, what do you as a practitioner see about that?
See, I think when I started studying architecture in 1974, there were very few schools of architecture, right? Very, very few schools of architecture. And it was a profession that was being there since independence, and there were firms like that. But most of us actually continued to do work in architecture, right? Or maybe in planning or in landscape architecture. The amount of varied fields that you could go in, maybe urban design and things like that. But the education in architecture today allows you to do many things. That's the beauty of this education. It opens your mind and it allows you to do anything, right? You could be a photographer, you could be a journalist, you could be a travelogue, you could be anything, right? And that's the beauty of it. And therefore, the calling that one has is allowed to come out. Maybe after doing 5 years of architecture, you really don't like architecture. Maybe it's a school that took it away from you, or maybe it's what you see around that took it away from you. But you have other callings, and therefore the profession, the education gives you that liberty to be able to do these kind of things. So does an institution have to struggle to allow all of this to happen? No, there's no need to. You can't cater to everything, right? You have to cater to something that is common, that from where people use that as a platform to do other things. And importantly, what these people do, other things like your alumni or other architects doing things, must be also put out in the education system, in the schools, saying, see, this architect is somebody who did this, or this architect is somebody who did this. We know all the best architects were not architects. The olden architects were never qualified architects, yeah? And they did wonderful work. So the education only gives you a certain amount of position from where you jump off and do other things. We didn't have that option then, right? In 1980, when I passed out, I could be a planner, I could be an urban designer. I could go maybe teach, not so easy, right? Because there were not many institutions there to teach. So there are so many things that are open to you today, which I think is a very a world that is full of energy. And if you look at this energy positively and you look at yourself within and say, what is it my calling? And don't be afraid to fail. Attempt. You might not be good at it, but if it's your calling, you will learn there. And therefore, I have no issue in architects becoming anything. Yeah? They can be wildlife photographers also, or they can be mountaineers also, or they can be chefs. What's wrong?
There are so many architects who've gone into different fields and definitely done very interesting work. So I'm going to be continuing on the same line, but I'm going to ask another question now. We'll go on to the second one. We have lots of ground to cover today. The question is, architectural criticism is quite non-existent in our city or even our country. Why do you think this state prevails?
Well, that question is perfect. There is no architectural criticism, right? It's every magazine is trying to just, put out work and talk about it and raise it to a level and things like that. But there is no true architectural criticism in the country. And I think that's primarily because not many architects or not many journalists have gone into architectural criticisms. And I don't think that as a profession of architects, we are open to critique in a way, right? As long as you are matured enough and you allow yourself to be critiqued, yeah, that needs to happen. And I think without a critique, the profession will not go anywhere. And that lack of critique is now being seen in the kind of work that you see everywhere that's happening. Right? There's no criticism. Everything is hunky dory kind of stuff. And what then happens is it gives the opportunity for the architect to be able to express himself against the criticism, right? So now you have to word or you have to say something about your work, not drumbeat your work and give images and give all kinds of things and all of that, but express as to why, do a critique. And I think that's important. As students, you're critiqued by senior architects, by teachers, by this and by that, and you have to stand up to the criticism. A senior architect also has to stand up to it. We don't have that in this country, very few, right? And even if we do have it, it's stifled, because where it's put out, those guys don't want it to be a magazine or this thing that's not considered, because they might not get readership, they might not get advertisements, they might not get this, they might not get that. That, I think, is the issue. If there's an honesty to everything, criticism is absolutely important. Without that, you can't go anywhere. We criticize each other, not publicly, right? I openly talk to some of my friends about their work and what I think about them and things like that. They back again talk to me about it and all of that. And you then understand that many people have many positions, no? So they express their positions, they explain their positions in a dialogue, not in a presentation where there is no really dialogue of what is their position. So I think criticism is important. I think some of the students should get into it. There are many interns of mine who have gone into architectural criticism, which I think is important.
Do you think this kind of criticism isn't very much, there in the state because of the kind of, there is a big hierarchical, system of architects. So let's say I'm criticizing someone's work. Firstly, there is no opportunity for me to criticize probably. Then there is also this factor, an architect is someone who's gone to a level, or, how do I say it openly or publicly? There might be some repercussions. So because I don't see this, I think the education system and the practice is very, very far apart, that it does not allow you to criticize someone directly.
Sure. So what happens when a young architect or young person criticizes a senior architect? The first thing the senior architect will say, what experience do you have? What do you know to criticize about it, right? To shut it down, right? That's the error of that senior architect, right? As a young architect or as an architect attempting to criticize and feeling that there might be repercussions, there are repercussions on everything. You cross the road without seeing, there's a repercussion, right? That doesn't mean you don't cross the road, right? So there will be repercussions. It's the strength that you do and the quality of your criticism. That's important. That you bring something to the table that's of value, not just for the sake of doing it. And that becomes important. If it's negative criticism to bring somebody down, that's not it. It should be positive criticism. And for me, a critique of my work is more valuable than a positive attitude. Oh, I like your building. What does it do to me? It doesn't do anything to me. I like your building. Nice building. It says nothing to me. So therefore, those who want to criticize, create a platform, criticize. And what will happen is you'll slowly build a body of people wanting to say things, not only about architecture, about the city, about so many things that you would need. It will then become a sort of awareness for others who read. Because right now there's a fear to criticize a senior architect. No? That fear should be taken away. There is no fear. What can the senior architect do to you? Anyway, it takes away your jobs.
So I'm going to go on to the next question. This is actually a very interesting question that came, so I've put it exactly how I got it. If you had to mention a bad building, which one would it be? What makes any building bad?
It's such a subjective question, and it comes that need to identify something bad comes from where you position yourself with respect to the kind of work that you do, or the kind of work that you look at, or the kind of work that you think is nice. And therefore, I think it would be wrong to pick out a building and say it's a bad building. For it to be called a bad building, how did it get built in the first place? Somebody must have liked it. Somebody must have paid for it. So
true.
It stands there.
No. The question is, okay, what makes any building bad, or let's say, I'm not going to say bad, but what makes it not very relevant? Or sometimes, you see a lot of these IT buildings coming up, you see a lot of buildings that you get angry on, or probably you get, you're very subjectively trying to look at it and you still can't find something positive, or you find that this is actually not right, or it's not that. So what, if you have anything to say, what makes that building that building?
See, what's happened is a lot of us have started borrowing images from all over the world, and the climate, the political climate also is, we want to be a Singapore, we want to be a Beijing, we want to be something else. We don't want to be Madras, Chennai, or whatever it is. There's always desire to be something that you are not, and therefore you start implanting things that really have no contextual reference. Choice of materials are bad, and then you find a lot of stuff that really is not bad, but terrible, right? And I am a critique of that kind of work. I am openly criticize that kind of work, and I do take battles with industry on this. I take battles with many of them, and it doesn't bother me. I don't care of the repercussions at all, and I don't do those kind of things. And therefore, you get to know as to what is it that is important to me from my position. But for those people doing that kind of buildings, they might like doing it. They might have their own positions. But because there's no criticism, you're not understanding their position. They're just showing it as an image.
No, I completely agree. And now it's just very subjective, but there have been sometimes when even I've gotten the question of why, we had to sit, we look at ECR and we look at the kind of IT buildings that we have in our city, which has been, inspirations, or which can be aspirations or whatever. There are always repercussions to all of these things. So I'm going to ask you to answer directly, emotionally. Now, we're not going to be naming any buildings, but I'm going to ask you, how will you respond to these materials that I'm going to be telling about, and your immediate reaction to these materials? So your opinion about cladding, finishing a building and then, let's say, cladding it in marble, cladding it in brick, cladding it in stone. What do you think about it?
Well, cladding is something that is applied, right? It doesn't come from its inner purity. It's something like I keep calling it the mascara rouge eyeliner kind of this thing, and it does give some amount of value in terms of imagery to the building, and therefore you have to decide what is the kind of cladding that you're going to use, right? So I can't answer that question by saying is cladding good or bad. Depending on the cladding is used, treated, and how it has been applied, is the understanding of that material that the architect has in the way he uses it. Do you understand? So today, cladding reached a point where it's not a natural material. You're not cladding natural material anymore. You're cladding all kinds of things, all materials that want to look natural and are not natural kind of stuff, right? And they are just applied. They're just fixed on. They're fixed on to things that don't even resonate with what they're covering up. So that is, I think, is mascara rouge and eyeliner.
Okay, the next material. Your opinion about, I'm not going to keep sharing it, your opinion about concrete, using concrete for floor, wall, ceiling, everything comes out in concrete. And what is your opinion about concrete?
Okay, concrete, when it came out, it gave a lot of liberty and flexibility to do a lot of work. But when it's overused the way it is being overused in certain projects that I have seen by certain architects that I see, it doesn't have the emotion, right? It doesn't have the emotion, and it's got something that's for me very dark. To live in a concrete wall, ceiling kind of space, it's kind of harsh to me, because a lot of these materials, when they come together, create the emotion, one part of the emotion of the space, the others, of course, many other things. But if you just use one material by itself, then I'm not a gray man. I'm not a gray man at all, right? So,
no, but you now see so many housing projects, apartments, which are all concrete oriented, in situ concrete, that is going floor after floor. Housing board projects are being done, private projects are being done with concrete walls. And
well, that
so
is
you're
because
not.
our industry has not been able to get out of it. No? If you go abroad, they're building in steel, right? They're building in wood. Now you're doing multi-story buildings in wood. You're building in steel. You're building in all of that kind of stuff. Here we still build in concrete. Slowly we are moving into other realms. But the large aspect of it, the bigger projects are in concrete. And we were a country that were building without concrete, right? And now it's easy to do it in concrete. And I think it's the ease of construction that becomes. So today the challenge is cast a floor in 11 days, cast a floor in 20 days. No, those are the challenges. How fast can you cast? And that I think is a problem. Many material overused without the understanding of the material and what it can do, both good and harm, then becomes an issue. And therefore, it has to be able to converse with other things also. It's just not that material alone. It has to converse with other materials. It has to come into some kind of understanding as to how these come together to create the whole. One material does not create the whole. And that's something that we need to look at. And concrete has become very easy. It's an easy getaway.
I think it is no more artistic, just quite,
Sure.
very bold. Now, glass. What do you think about glass?
Glass as a material? Okay. Glass
The way it is being used.
Glass misuse is pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. And therefore, I will then come to your question. If you look at the OMR, it's a road that runs north-south or south-north, whichever way. And therefore, all the buildings that affront the road are facing east or west. And every building worthy of being called the modern buildings of today are completely glassed. Completely glassed. And then you have leads rating and Graha ratings and things like that to give it to a platinum prize or a silver or a gold. And what do they expect you to do? Use high expensive glass to reduce heat gain. First of all, you created the heat gain. Then you spend money to reduce the heat gain. And then you go into these buildings and you don't see anything because they put blinds on the glass. Right? So this, if an architect cannot understand this and continues to do it, that means he's escaping. He's escaping. And this is also what is happening in educational institutions. Right? It's happening there. And therefore, the child takes it up and says, yes, we can do this. And he sees so much of this across that is being built that, hospitals become glass buildings, colleges have glass buildings. Everything becomes glass, almost replacing concrete or another way of cladding. So it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
And the fourth material. Please.
No, I was forced to do one. And the condition I laid on my client is wherever I put glass, you won't put blinds. Right? It's 13 years. That building doesn't have blinds.
Nice.
So if you use glass properly with the orientation and all of that, and you have the ability to be able to extend the space into something which is very nice, right? You can't have somebody else's toilet looking into you, right? Or you can't have all of that. So the context allows you to do that, then yes, you can try doing that. It's not a total no, but how you use it. But along the ECR, along the OMR, it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
No, that's a textbook wrong that has happened. We've always told to not orient the buildings that way and not put glass in the college. It's a basic, it's a climatology theory that we learn. But again, I don't think we've questioned why they have built it that way. Anyway, we're going to the fourth material, but thank you for that point. It definitely resonates to so many students who are listening to this and architects who are listening to this. You got to use something, you got to use it right. You have to have a good reason, not just because, we can plant 4 trees outside. And so we're going to go to the next material, which is one of the very important materials, ACP, aluminum composite panels that have come into the market. What is your opinion about ACP?
It should be sent back from where it came. Rip all the buildings that have ACP on and send it back. It's one of the worst materials. It's a cheat. It's a bloody cheat. It's something that no architect should use. It's a giveaway. It's something that is, I would say, actually trying to hide your incompetence. I hope that's strong.
Yeah, that's very strong, and I think it makes so much sense. So now we're going to go to the next one. I'm going to, just ask this question, which is about. We're going to take slightly a lighter note now. It's about your firm and the story of your firm, because I thought we'll take that up. So that's the question that I'm going to be asking. Starting a firm of your own wasn't easy for sure. How did that happen? And if you had to start a firm in the current setting, how would Pramod Balakrishnan have done it?
So every time that one starts a firm, it's dependent on the time that you started the firm, the conditions of the society at that time, and many other things, right? So when I did start my firm here, basically I had no idea of starting a firm initially. I was practicing in Kuwait with a Kuwaiti British firm, and I was part of the design team. And we were doing projects in Yemen, in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Iraq, and all of that. And we actually started designing the Kuwait National Computer Center. This is 1982, 83, right? But there I realized that whatever we as architects from India did in that firm, the credit went to the white man, right? We were never given the credit for the work that we produced. He took our work and used it as his. And I felt terribly disappointed by that entire thing. I said, "Oh, this is not where I want to work." And I came back to India, and we realized that the only place that we could go would be Madras then, still Madras for me, because back to Ahmedabad, no hope. Delhi, can't handle the Punjabis. Bombay, very expensive. Bangalore, full of relatives. So we ended up in Madras, not knowing a soul and not knowing how to practice in India. I hadn't practiced in India, right? So practicing in the Gulf was like buying windows from Switzerland and tiles from Japan and something from here. Catalog architecture, right? You never went into the market to buy material. You had to look at catalogs and then select the material and then put it in. There were some other materials that were made there that we used, okay, very good materials. But apart from that, the idea of building in India, I had no knowledge. And when I came here, I didn't even know what I was worth. Who would pay me? Who would employ me? I didn't know. And I didn't know many architectural firms in Chennai, in Madras at that time. And so there's an ad that came in the paper and I applied for it. And instead of me giving an interview, the firm gave an interview of themselves, because I was the first student from CET in Chennai, right? And therefore they said, "Why don't you work with us?" and things like that. And I said, "Okay, I won't name the firm." So I started working with them. Entire idea of working with them was to learn how it is done in Chennai, in Madras at that time. What are the kind of materials? What's the kind of cost of materials? Where are they available? What is the kind of building people are doing and all of that, to get an understanding of how I can use my design sense to become an architect that can build. I didn't last 8 months then. 8 months I ran away because I just couldn't understand what was happening then. Couldn't understand. It was hurtful. It was not palatable at all. And whatever I tried to do was not accepted, and saying, no, do it fast. Don't worry about all of these things. Those are not important things, kind of stuff. And therefore I went out and just put up a board. We didn't have a telephone. We didn't have computer. We had nothing, right? We had nothing. We knew nobody. And therefore we began that way. I began that way. I think I told the story to a couple of times before, that the first project that I got was adding a toilet to a RVS Chennai's house that he had designed and built, adding a toilet. And I did it without saying, "Hey, I've got 8 years of architecture. I've done so much work. How can I do a toilet? It's below my dignity to do a toilet." Right. The second project I got was to add a house extension to a Chitre project. Right. I did it. Right. And I had to address the client's 10-year-old son. So to all young architects who are setting out, it's never easy. However, whatever you are, it's never easy to get started. It's never easy to to be able to get the first few projects. And as long as you stay in the game, and and as long as you value what you do, and as long as you stay within your beliefs that you have, and if you're lucky, things will come your way. Things will come your way. And we had no expectations. We still don't have any expectations. And I think that's important. We have, you say I'm a well-known architect. I don't consider that. We've done work all over the country, some work abroad, but it's all come to us because of the work that we had done before. We've not set out to go and get it. So we don't compete in any competitions. We don't market ourselves. We don't do any of that sort. Our market is the work that we did before. So, and if somebody sees it and likes it and they come to us, great.
So that next question is completely in relevance to what you just said. Will you call yourself a commercially successful firm or an architect? Now, I really don't know what the intent of this question is by commercial. It could be economical. Could be that you've earned a lot or earned quite a bit or earned little. But how do you call yourself? Would you call yourself a commercially successful firm or an architect?
I call myself an architect first. Okay, I won't change that ever. I won't pick up another profession again, even if I was born right now under these trying conditions. Commercial is I don't know. It's a kind of a not the right word to use. Are you saying commercial architect, people doing commercial work are not good? I don't think so. Are you labeling an architect he does commercial work and therefore he's not there? I don't think so. That's wrong. You get all kinds of work, and I don't think that title of a commercial architect should be even looked at. There might be work that they're doing that you might not like, or they might be doing work that you feel is not right, and therefore you call it commercial because he or she wants to do it for the money, or etc. etc. I don't think it's right to do that. Discuss the work. Discuss the work. Only when you discuss the work, then only will you understand the derogatory aspect of easily labeling something. So don't label it unless you know what's happening. That's one thing I want to tell you. Second, am I successful? What is success? How do you define success? I define success when the end user in my project, when I go and meet him or I meet an unknown user of my project, comes to me and thanks me for the environment that I have given him or her or them. That's successful. Not the money that you make, not anything else, not anything else. Therefore, am I successful? I don't know. I don't say I'm successful. In terms of if you term success based on money, you've got the whole game wrong. You got the whole game wrong. So I don't define success.
But young firms, or even everyone, end of the day, there is a kind of I wouldn't even say that it is wrong, but my comment is, it is also about the amount of money we make in any profession. I'm not saying you need to make big money or we need to make fast money, but I'm saying, is it money or the amount of money you're able to make, or probably the amount of money you're able to save?
So I'm going to tell you something that might not resonate with the others. I never stepped out to do work to make money. I still don't step out to do work to make money. Right? The money will come on its own if your work is good and your deliverables are good and you're honest with your work. The money will come. It doesn't mean that all clients pay you. No. Right. There are many issues that we've had in our career, which were heartbreaking, which were really heartbreaking, right? And we didn't step out and say, okay, we're going to now change our attitude to all our clients. No, every client is different. And so if you have the expectation that by 5 years I must be this, by 10 years I must be this, you've got it all wrong. You've got it all. What is the job you have in your hand right now? Do that well. Do that very, very well. And don't do it because I'm getting only X amount, therefore I'll only put in so many man hours. Remember, it's the work that you do that speaks for you and gives you the platform to get the next job. You understand? Therefore, your relationship with the client, your relationship with the contractors, your relationship with people who work on the project, all of these are important for you to be able to grow. You're not a demigod. You're one of a large team. And if you understand that, then that's the way. Because all that you have to market is as a teamwork. Half the projects I get are from contractors who work with me, who love the way they work with me, or another client who recognized my work and gave me another client. It's always come through some reference. Anybody who calls me and from a yellow page, in those days, yellow pages, or today somewhere else, call comes and asks, who called? How did you get my name? Oh no, I got it from this. Sorry, I can't talk to you. You understand? I don't.
Yeah.
I don't even pick up the project. I don't even talk. The conversation doesn't go forward. I have to know where they're coming from first. How do they hear of us? What do they think of us? If they don't know that, then it's not a supermarket.
Not right. True. The next question is exactly what we wanted, or someone has asked it very clearly. We struggle in so many levels and face multiple challenges. Can you let us in on your personal encounter with architecture that broke you down or made you feel hopeless or lost, but didn't give up?
I don't think I was lost at any time. Was I hopeless at certain times? I would say no. The failures that I had, some of them were very, very big failures, were the ones that actually strengthened me. I looked at it positively. I looked at the mistakes that I had made. And the failures were not on work. The failures were with clients. The failures were with clients who didn't pay you. The failure with clients that you've done a lot of work, that you were doing so many projects that, it was like almost trying to get a retainer every month to get that kind of, those were the failures that I had. I didn't have failures in the work that I did. No, not that, I can even look at even one project. No, I didn't fail in that way. Some would have liked it, some would not liked it, but all of my end users at the end of the day do come back to me. My old clients always come back to me. And that, I think, is the way to look at it. Hopeless and lost, I'll tell you, I started my firm with me. I used to make my own drawings. There were no computers. I used to print. I used to measure the site myself. I used to clean my office myself. I used to clean the toilet myself. I used to typewrite and do my bill of quantities and all of that. And then we went and became a firm of 52 people. And today we're a firm of 7 people. So the firm just ebbs and grows with the time. And with the way you're beginning to react with society as it is at this stage. So do I feel hopeless now? No way. Was I happy when I had a 52-member firm? Yes, I was happy. It was impressive energy. Now I'm still happy. I'm happy. I'm doing the work that I want to do, and I'm saying no to the work that I don't want to do.
True, very true. So I think someone who's asked the question now has got an answer. I think it's always about being, trying to look beyond the current, the failure or whatever you're facing. I think there's a way out of it. But as long as there is passion involved, that's going to be important. That's something that I've always seen in Pramod sir, a lot of passion. Definitely. So I'm going to the next question. This is something that also I think I shared the question as well in the beginning. As a firm, you have not won many awards like the other firms. How does that make you feel?
I'm the same. It doesn't matter to me whether I win awards or not, because I don't put my job work for awards. I'm not here to be on the cover of a magazine or to go up on a stage and receive an award. I'm not here for that at all. My work is not to be covered in all the social media or things like that. You won't see much of it. And that's primarily because of my failure in documenting my work. It's a big failure that I have, that I don't document our work that we have done all over the country. And because you don't document it, then you can't present it. But it's not documented to use as publicity material. In fact, my clients document it better than I do. And then they send it to me. Of course, the pictures are a different viewpoint, not from an architect's view, but the pictures are from their viewpoint, and that's more interesting to me as to how they see their built environment and what is it that they like about it. Is the pictures that they take and send it to me. So
but that's a decision you took. But in the current trend, in the current market scenario, there is always this social media importance, the kind of renderings that's put out. There is a different agenda to it. Yeah, you have taken a decision. The firm has been there; it has got its value. But what about younger firms? They have approached this as from a very different point of view, completely opposite to what you think.
See, I told you when I started, it was different, right? Now it's very different. Now if you're not in the media and you're not making noise, or you're not seen all the time, then out of sight, out of mind. It's sad that it has to be that way. It is sad that you have to constantly keep posting something that you have posted before time and time again, which to me is absurd, right? And only show the nice things of the project that you have done. Nobody writes anything about a failure, right? Nobody writes anything, oh, bad this thing or something like that. Everybody's trying to put the images out and talk good about the images and things like that. So therefore, what does it become? It's not true. Some of the images might be wonderful, right? Some of the images will be wonderful, but otherwise it's not there. And all those images have no people in it. All those images have no people in it. They're so fucking plasticky, right? And whom are you building for? Whom are you building for? You're building for the people who live there, no? How do they use the space? All neat, clean, you wait, move, or you have somebody there purposely standing there to create that, that image that you had in your mind that you want to capture. So if you find a human being there, that human being will say, hey, stand like this. Okay, the light must come from this way. The light must come from that way. Okay, then we'll take the picture. It's wrong. It's wrong. That's for an architectural photographer to do. Even an architectural photographer very rarely has people in their pictures. It's wrong. We don't make objects, no. We make environments where people live in. If those environments are not taken over by the people, then what's the point? You might as well make shoes.
I think that's very essential and important as well. But the idea of renderings, what do you think about renderings? It's actually currently something that I think every client, irrespective of whether the client is signed in or not. I'm purely talking about from a very young firms and recent practices. I'm not speaking about Edifice. I don't know whether Edifice does renders or not. I'm not sure.
We don't.
So I'm talking.
We lost a job because somebody else's render was far better than ours, and we lost the job. And then after the client started building, he was just completely taken aback at what he was getting, because the renders, what he saw and what got built had no relationship. The practice had no way of building it in any way. So it's a kind of this thing that the clients are cheated on, I would say, right? So you do your renders, and we don't do renders. We are forced to do renders. Maybe we will do renders. Otherwise, we don't do. And our renders are not presentable renders in the sense that what you see today. So that's a given. We don't render in our office. Is that good or bad? I think it's a decision somebody has to take. But from my point of view, I don't think we need to render.
Now, going to the next question, since we have a few more left. Yeah. Being in the practice for a few decades now, with respect to building regulations and guidelines, are we progressing or are we regressing?
I don't think we ever progressed to regress. Okay? Because of the fact that you can't apply a rule carte blanche across a city or across a state today, right? Without really understanding what the rule does. And if you don't understand why you're making these rules, it makes no sense. I think rule making is necessary for some amount of control, but the rules need to be worked upon by a group of people who are in the field and who are also part of the city. Otherwise, it's written by one with some of the rules written for certain groups of people for them to be successful. So I think the rules are absurd. They're getting worse with every given day. If you look at building activity in other parts of the world and things like that, they have rules. They have very, very strong rules that are held together. If I want to change a wall in an American building of a school, I need the council's permission. I need this permission. I need that permission. And until that permission comes in, I can't do it. Here, we can do any damn thing, right? The rule is to be meant to be broken. If you don't break it, the rule makers are not happy.
So if you had to, I'm just asking, as a student itself, if you had to suggest one rule or one thing that you think, this thing I think we should definitely change, what would that be? Do you have something with so much practice? This thing or this particular rule, I really think it should not be there, or this should be there. Something that you feel,
See, our buildings have become isolated within the perimeter of the compound wall, right? Yes. So the street becomes a road. The neighbor becomes somebody that's divided from you, right? And therefore, if those rules could change to some extent to allow a kind of a mesh that builds a totality kind of stuff, and where there are certain things put in to do that, it would make sense. Today, we're all just building islands. We're just building islands. Our neighbors, we are not worried about. The road just happens to be, if it's wide enough, you get more buildable area, or you leave more setback or something. So connection between the built and the outside is completely lost because of the rule making within the property. So I think that we need to change to a large extent. And I think we need to also look at, I don't know whether we can look at how neighborhoods get rules for their own, not carte blanche, how neighborhoods get rules. So it's a neighborhood getting a certain kind of rule, yes. Because what we're seeing now, anything goes anywhere.
So you're suggesting that we look at it even more smaller rather than just implementing large macroscopic views of setbacks, and rather than making it more microscopic. That's something that you think that you would suggest if you were in the committee.
I've suggested many times. Nobody listens.
No, I really want to know. Are you part of this committee by any chance?
No, I was not part of the committee. I give free. I whenever something comes out, I always put it out to them and say this is rubbish, right? Or I give my comment on it, kind of stuff, right? So I say what I have to say. When the second DCR came out, that was completely outdated. I on a public platform said one man cannot do the second master plan. One man can't do the master plan. I also said that the rule on the same day changes from table to table and from time to time. So be honest to what you think and say it. If you're saying it change anything? No way. No way. It might make you feel good that you said it. That's all.
Oh, at least that's there. So I'm going to go to the next one. We have also think that this is something that came from, I think, a young practice. The importance of vernacular materials like mud, CSCB, brick, and ramdust is catching up now, and there are a lot of young firms choosing this alternative. Why do you think old and large practices stay away from this? And I would like to say, why didn't this importance to environmental, or sustainability start much earlier rather than now? Two questions there.
Yeah. Again, what's happening now is a reaction to what people are seeing around them. What happened then was the reaction of the country opening up itself to the world and using the success of what the world saw what we saw elsewhere to reproduce it here without really thinking about it. So what I think people are doing with mud and with other kind of materials is very, very good. It's excellent, I think. And what happens is it also, at the end of the day, who you build for also should be sympathetic and amenable to the material that you use. You understand? And therefore, there needs to be a change in the way society thinks about building. Not large buildings, just homes, just small institutions like that allow for this kind of this thing. This whole question of sustainability again is an issue because if you are not sustainable in your life, what is sustainable in a building? I made this point last time also. You have to be sustainable in your life.
I'm asking this because if you see Bangalore as a city, they have there are practices they have established quite a long time back, and they have showcased the use of sustainable architecture in a very, very rigorous way. While that has also led to the acceptance of the entire city, the kind of acceptance, the mindset it is. But that has not happened in a city like Chennai, which is actually equally, I would say, even a bigger contributor in terms of the money, in terms of the development, and so many things. So my question is, why do you think that didn't really catch up at a very important juncture? Because Bangalore, I would definitely say that architects like Biome and Chitra Vishwanathan and even commercial developers like Gooder have been able to put up some serious ideas in front. Even though they have a lot more glass buildings like we do, they have a larger IT. I think that's growing in one side very largely, but on the other side also, even if it's very small, there is a large. I think the seesaw is trying to be balanced at least one side, but here we feel that it is quite less. And do you think that established practices need to start, changing or adhering to these kind of issues so that the acceptance becomes larger? Because that is something that we don't see happening. Well, young firms are definitely doing it, smaller firms are doing it, but why not large firms?
Can you change an elephant?
No.
That's the problem. Once you become an elephant, you're an elephant. You can't become an ant or a rat or something like that, even though the rat has greater values, maybe. I don't know. So that's the problem with big firms. Once they become big and once they've done it in a particular way, they don't do it any other way. 99.9%, including my firm, we don't do any research work, right? We do send some of our employees, I won't call employees, some of our peers to do workshops, right? We fund their workshops, go to Auroville, learn this, learn that, all of that, in the hope that they'll come back and give back something of the knowledge that they have. I'm not going to accept it completely. Okay, Chitra, of course, is doing this work for a very, very long time. There are others doing the work for a very long time. I think there are many firms here in Chennai also doing that kind of work, but they're not getting that kind of patronage, is what I feel. Okay, and when you don't get that kind of patronage, then what happens is you don't get workmen to do that kind of work, and therefore those workmen become actually craftsmen, which they were always. And it becomes very expensive for people to build it kind of stuff. I think if something hasn't happened, is because primarily one, that there was no need for it, there was no hunger for it, and two, I think a lot of it had to do with architects accepting the given. The given is much easy, much easy. It's very easy to do an IT building with glass, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's a given. So that given is the problem, and you can't change an elephant. No way.
I think elephant makes a lot more sense in every aspect of it. So we have, I think, 10 more minutes, and I'm going to be asking the questions quite faster so that we have 2-3 questions we could cover. The next question is about your role in academics. You have been an academician for a really long time. Just for information, Pramod was also my thesis internal reviewer, and I think we've had very interesting conversations as a student, also as a practicing architect. And my question is, you've been an academician and have been very vocal about the education standards of the state. What would you like to change in the current academic practice? And this time, I really want you to point out one thing that you really want the academics to change. Very, very seriously, because there are many young teachers listening, and I feel that the young teachers are very passionate. They are very energetic. They're very creative. So
I would begin by saying what you are doing with at RVS and the kind of things that you're doing is hope. Is hope. What's happening in other institutions to some extent is a factory, right? Something comes in, something goes out, right? And the process of doing it, whether it's right or wrong, it happens. So there are many things one would like to do, but it can't be done alone. It cannot be done with the support of the teachers in the institution, primarily the senior teachers in the institution. It cannot be done without the management wanting to do it. And it cannot be done if some of us make one visit in 1 year. It has to be continuous. And so until and unless you don't understand as to what is it that you want to bring out from a student that leaves your portal, we're just following a standard tick mark box that has to be done. First year you do this, second year do this, third year you do this, fourth year you do this. And what do you, the whole process is linear. The whole process is judgmental from the perspective of the teacher. The student has no input in it. And 98% of the students who do come out don't come out as thinkers. The 2% that come out because of themselves, not because of the education system. So there's a lot to change. There's a lot that needs to be changed. There are a lot of people trying to change it, but change doesn't happen in 1 day or 2 days. Change happens through consistently being there. And the hope is that whenever you go to an institution, you develop a studio that is done differently, that opens the eyes of the student and begins to make that studio exciting. Any studio that I go to, in any college that I go to, the studios are dead. The physical environment is dead. So you're an architect, you're working in a studio, and if your physical environment is not right, then you got something wrong at the first place. So there's so many things that are wrong that becomes a right later on. It becomes the way. So that's something. There's lots to change. Can it be changed?
Saying that the approach or the studio's life will be the first thing, because since that's something you mentioned, there should be life in the studio. Probably, I need one point to take back from this.
The point that you have to take back from here is get out of a brief that is problem solving. Right? Get out of a brief which is typology driven. Get out of a brief that is scalar in buildable area and complexity. I can't believe a student who passes out from a school of architecture can design a hospital, or can design a 5-star hotel, or can design an airport. You're teaching them things that are like, impossible. Okay, right? So be more pragmatic. Allow the student to become something that he or she comes from. Because when they come to your portal, they've already come through a system of rote, of being judged, everything. They've had nothing of themselves there. Give them the opportunity for them to become. So give your studio briefs as interpretive studio briefs, right? Where you don't say setback is so much, this is so much, you must do this, you must do that, this. Then you do a linear process of an absurd linear process and say, what is your concept? I hate that word. Okay, what is your concept? And the child has to come up with some idea of a concept or something. They've got understanding in him. So all of this needs to be rectified, corrected. So the process becomes the learning, not at every point where you get to. Because when I come into a studio and I see the brief, I already know where my journey ends. What's the point? Where's the fun in the journey? I can get off the train, come back sometime later and still produce what you want. So the in-between journey is useless. So all your case studies get dumped into the garbage bin after the case studies is over. Right? All that is wrong. All that is wrong. And there is no meshing between the various subjects that are being taught. The studio is a standalone, a complete standalone. And it's become something where the student comes, shows the teacher, finishes, packs up, goes home. We've changed things in certain institutions when we went there for some time. We had the institution open till 6:30. We had the institution keep special buses for that particular class because the students were excited. They were doing work in the studio, and for 1 week, the buses ran 1.5 hours late for that particular studio. So I don't think it's not difficult to change things. You would want to change first. You would want to change it. And when you do change it, you're going to have objections, right? From those who are happy and comfortable doing the same thing. So once teaching becomes a sense of comfort, then it becomes. So, teaching has become a payable profession. That's the tragedy. I won't add anything to it because, there's lots I can add, but I won't.
Yeah. No, I think there is definitely something that I'm taking back from this, and there's no doubt in that. So I'm going to ask one continuity to this. What is your expectation from a student, who wants to, let's say, join your firm or as an architect? What do you think students should possess at the end of 5 years? Like you said, he's not going to be building a hospital. He's not going to be building a 5-star hotel. That is very clear. What do you think a 5-year graduate of bachelor's in architecture coming out of Anna University from Tamil Nadu, what does you think are the skills that he should definitely possess?
He should say, I don't know. I want to learn. Right? All of them come saying, I know this, I know that, I know this, 80% there, 90% there, I've done this, I've done that. Nobody says, I don't know. Right? Therefore, the whole idea of saying, I don't know, I'd like to work with you. Why would you want to work with me? What is it that you want to do? So therefore, there needs to be that kind of this thing. Because I can work with anybody. I can work with anybody, right? Because once they come in, then they get, they become part of what the studio is. We are 40 years in the profession. I don't know how many people have come in and gone out, but the quality of drawings, quality of work, the quality of details have not changed through time, irrespective of who's doing it, right? And many of these have grown up to make their own firms, which is the best part of it. So what do I need a student to come in? I don't know. Right. I had a very nice example to give you. An intern came into our office some years ago, and we were full. And I said, no, we don't have any space. So he said, I'll just stand in the corridor. You don't have to give me a computer. You don't have to give me anything. I'll just stand in the corridor. That answer is what got him into the internship. And today, he's a very, very successful architect on his own, right? Very successful. He came to me and said, should I learn masters or should I work somewhere? I said, forget your masters. You want to practice architecture? Go work with this firm. So I put him onto a firm there. He worked there for a few years, learned so much there, and then he started his own firm. But that first thing, I stand in the corridor here, sir. None of our students can even come out with that kind of thing. No? They can't belittle themselves. So how does one present oneself is very important, right? The no, I don't want, because I still don't know. So if you know everything, then I'm in trouble in my studio. So that is important. So the school always wants you to say, I know this, I know that, I know this, I know that. Who are you? What are you? What is that you want to do? What kind of work you want to do? I think colleges should give exposure.
Give them a lot of opportunities, let them see a lot of things, and probably allow them to take informed decisions. Yeah, very nice. So this is the last question. This is something that came. So it is just mere strategy, and it's it's about economics. How did the pandemic affect your firm economically, and what kind of strategies did you practice?
I've answered this question before because of the fact that the real estate industry was already, this whole idea of the economy suffering, the economy has been suffering before the pandemic, all right? The pandemic is not the reason for the economy suffering. The economy was going down the tubes in 2017. So by 2019, we were seeing the kind of work that was coming to us, the kind of timeline the work was taking, the kind of issues some people had with the work kind of stuff. And slowly, not by force, but slowly we began to shrink in size. People got married, people went for education, people started their own firms. One second. People started their own firms, because at our office, we do something which I don't know whether other offices do. If you work 5 years with us, at the end of the 5th year, you get a loyalty bonus of 5 months salary. Okay, of the salary that you're earning at that moment of time. So that gives you a capital to able to start your own firm and maybe live for maybe a year without getting anything. Because when you start your own firm, you may start it out of your house or something like that and things like that. So we do that. We don't want people to be there. We don't want people to stagnate in our office, right? So we do that. I lost your question actually in that whole process.
No, the question was, how did we were talking about the economics of the firm and
right.
how you strategized it.
Therefore, what happened is that we became a firm that was very, very effective, very effective firm. And we had enough projects that ran through the pandemic. We still have enough projects that can keep the office afloat for another 2 years without getting a new project. Do you understand?
Nice.
Therefore, that's kept us afloat. We did, of course, 100% reduce salaries. It came out from a fear complex more than anything else, right? Oh my God, what's going to happen kind of stuff. And so we reduced salaries for 3 months and then increased it after 3 months. And then within 9 months, all of them got increments. Right.
Nice.
So there was a fear, because I'd never come across a pandemic. I've seen the 2008 crash. I've seen the 1999 crash. All of those crashes didn't impact us that badly, right? 2008 crash did impact us. We lost a lot of projects. But this one, we had the projects, and therefore we were not impacted that. And right now we're quite comfortable. I'm listening to music in my office, reading books, that kind of stuff. And that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah. That sounds very promising. And I think that's something that I think everyone has been saying, as the pandemic has definitely thrown some light into how the structuring and the firm has happened. And this practice that you actually told me personally about this 5-year, thing in your office. And I'm very happy that many entrepreneurs have kickstarted from Edifice. And that's really important, It's not about getting stuck in some place, and I think that's how it should be. So that's the last question that I had. I've covered almost everything, and I would like to definitely thank you, sir, for spending some time with us today. And I hope the conversation was exciting for me. I hope it was exciting for you as well.
Well, I hope it was good for the people who are listening into.
Yeah, and I'm very sure that it would have definitely helped them think about it. Rather than us showing presentations, we really want these conversations are definitely going to give them a lot of hope, give them a lot of learning, something to take back from. So thank you, sir, for being a part of Future of Architecture. And once the pandemic and everything comes out, I would like to invite you to our Center for Design someday, so that we can all.
Would love to come.
Sure.
Soon we'll realize the pandemic is with us. We just have to go on with our lives.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.